Well guys, it's story time. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for checking out today's video. I apologize if the audio sounds like crap. I had an issue with my old microphone, so I need to get a new one. So my audio setup's a little bit different today. I live on a busy road. There's cars going by. It's 94 degrees outside today, so the garage door is open and there's a lot of noise outside. So hopefully it's not too bad. But if it is, I can't really do a whole lot about it. But this was a really interesting story, and I think a lot of you guys are going to want to hear it. And I know a lot of people were concerned about it, so I'm just here to kind of tell the story, alleviate some concerns, and put all this to rest, let you guys know what happened. So before we get any further into the video, you're going to hear a lot of names mentioned, 4 of them to be exact. And I am in no way, shape, or form bashing a single one of these companies. Every single one of them have been nothing but helpful. So when you watch this video, keep that in mind. Do not think, oh, every single one of these people, amazing. So let's backtrack, go to day 1 where this all started. The first thing that happened was Import Image Racing sent me out an access port so that I could get the car tuned. So big shout out to Import Image. They've been big supporters of the channel, and obviously I used to work for them. I love everybody over there. They're a great company to buy parts from. Great customer service. They sent me out the access port, brand new, opened it up, plugged it in the computer, did the latest firmware update. That's always the first thing I do when I get an access port. It just makes the most sense, make sure it's most updated. Then from there, I'm in talks with my tuner, Cobb Tuning. I'm like, hey, I got the access port. I'm going to plug it up to the car, flash the first tune on, everything's going to be golden. And this is where the problem started. So he is definitely not to blame in any way, shape, or form, and has been only helpful because the first map that I tried to load up onto the car wasn't even his map. It was actually a OTS map from Cobb that I was just loading up. Basically, I was going to make an instructional video and picked a base OTS map to demonstrate it with. And so I plugged the access port into the car. I basically load up the map. I hit flash, and everything's perfect. Everything looks normal. And then it starts flashing. It gets to 1% and my car starts making this noise. And I'm thinking, what the heck's going on? I just shut the key off. I'm like, okay. I'm like, let me try this again. I turn it on and I'm like going to try and flash it again, and it's still making noise, and the access port says it's entered recovery mode. So it started flashing the car, 1% cut off, something happened. I checked the cable. The cable was firmly pressed into the OBD2 port. It was firmly clicked into the access port and locked. I couldn't even unplug it. I couldn't even force it to lose any kind of connection. It was perfectly connected via the cable. And then I was like, uh-oh, because Cobb always warns you, and you really should, but probably 90% of us don't do it. And if you go in the comments and say you do, you might be lying. You're probably lying. If you're not, good for you. But I would say probably 90% of us don't. And that is have a battery charger hooked up to their car when they're flashing. So the first thing I did was check my battery voltage, and I had 12.6 volts. And I was like, well, that don't make sense. Now, again, I flashed my old WRX probably over 100 times with all my tune revisions and never once hooked up a battery charger and never had an issue. I know 30, 40, 50 Subaru owners who have flashed their cars and never hooked up a battery charger and never had an issue. Cobb highly, highly, highly advises, says it's imperative. So I'm freaking out. I'm like, I screwed this up. I got to contact Cobb. I don't know what I'm going to do. I started talking to my tuner, and he's like, well, did you have a battery charger hooked up? And I said, no, I didn't. And he goes, oh, man. He's like, it literally says right on the screen, hook up a battery charger. I'm like, yeah, I know, but does anyone even do that, And so all along, like, I'm thinking I screwed this thing up. And I'm like, man, I just fried my computer probably. So I called Cobb. I explained the situation. Basically, we were back and forth with emails. They were troubleshooting. And before Cobb got involved, my tuner, Clark Turner, was actually on the phone with me. It was kind of late in the evening too, and he's like, hey, give me a call. So So I called him, he's walking me through, he's like, well, try doing this, try doing that. You know, did you try unhooking the battery? Did you try hooking up a charger? Make sure all your accessories are off. Did you try uninstalling the access port? So he's really walking me through all these situations, trying to help me get this figured out. So big shout out to him. I sent him a video of what the car was doing. We checked everything, and he helped me run through all these tests. And he goes, well, I let Cobb know what's going on, so just go ahead and reach out to them and we'll get this all figured out. So I reached out to Cobb, told them what happened. They said, buddy, you should really have a battery charger hooked up when you do this, but it doesn't sound like that was the issue. Rather, it was something else. So it ended up not being the battery charger. Again, the battery was at 12.6 volts. The access port was seeing 12.6 volts when I flashed it. So there wasn't even time for the battery to drop in voltage. The tune literally just started flashing. It didn't even make it past 1%. So there's the access port. Here is my original ECU or ECM engine control module. Here's another ECU or ECM engine control module, and obviously the car is sitting here and there's one in the car that is operable. This is where the story starts, the juicy stuff. So we basically, after several tests, Cobb was like, hey, your car probably needs a new computer. So take the car to Subaru, have them install a computer. And I was a little bit worried about telling Subaru what was going on in fear that they would void my warranty altogether. Now, once you tune the car, Subaru can always check, they can find out, and if you blow the car up, they're like, hey, we know you tuned this thing. So, kind of dumb to even assume that, you know, but I didn't say anything to Subaru. I towed the car there, and I was like, listen, I went out to the car, here's what it's doing, it won't start, it's making this noise, nothing is working properly, and you know, check it out for me. So they had it for about 2 days before they started diving into it, and they were like, oh yeah, your ECM appears to be bad, so we're gonna have to replace that. Now Cobb, mind you, at this point Cobb told me, take it to Subaru, have them replace it, we're gonna pay for the bill. So send your towing bill, send the bill from Subaru, we're gonna cover it. So Cobb stepping up right away, accepting any kind of responsibility and saying we'll cover all costs. That was the first major thing they did that I was like, wow, these guys are awesome, which I always liked Cobb. Cobb is like the gateway company to be able to do the things that you want to do with your Subaru. I mean, the JB4 is out there and there's open source tuning, but Cobb made the access port, which is just the king of doing anything to your car, really is. So they stepped up in a big way, and I was like, okay, cool, they're going to help me figure this out, get this thing back on the road. That's where the problems started. The car got to Subaru, and I was like, cool, everything's good to go, they're going to fix this thing, Cobb's going to pay the bill, we'll be back on the road. Subaru calls me up and says, listen, we're going to replace the ECM, but there's a giant problem, and that is that it's back ordered. And the earliest you'll probably see your ECM, unless some miracle happens, is the end of July. I'm making this video at the start of June, and this was 3 weeks ago in the middle of May. So I'm basically being told my car's not going to be back on the road until sometime end of July, early August, somewhere around there. And I'm like, it just got warm outside. It's the middle of summer. I have videos to make. I have car shows to go to. I got mods to put on the car. I literally have stuff sitting in my house. I got a tuner, you know, on standby waiting to tune the car. I got Cobb, you know, I got my access port. I got all this stuff going on. I'm like, I can't have my car down for 2.5 months. There's no way. I can't do this. So I start freaking out. Subaru's like, well, we'll put you in a loaner vehicle. You know, we have courtesy vehicles. I'm like, listen, I appreciate that, but I don't know what to do here. You know, I'm like losing my mind. And they're like, well, here you go. Here's a cross-track loaner. You know, we'll put in an urgent order and hopefully it'll all get figured out. So I asked Subaru, I said, listen, well, what if I find a used ECU and I bring it to you guys? Will you install it? And he goes, we can install it, but... And this is the weird thing, is that I see people selling used ECUs. So there's a lot of stuff here that is all confusing. But he was like, well, we'll install an ECU, but it basically voids your warranty on any of the computer stuff in the car. And I said, well, that makes sense. But he's like, and then we'll have to send a report to Subaru, and if your engine blows or something, they might blame it on that used ECU. So I was like, well, great. So I scratched that idea. I'm like, what am I going to do now? So I'm like, I reached out to Cobb. I was like, hey, my car is not going to be done until like 2 months from now. So I'll keep you guys updated whenever I figure this out. So Cobb comes back and they're like, oh, they were like, hell no. We got extra ECUs laying around. We're going to send you one. I was like, okay. So they're like, we have brand new, unopened, good to go ECUs. We'll send one out to Subaru, have them install it, and everything will be good to go. So they send out the ECU. They send it directly to Subaru. Subaru gets the package. And of course it says it's from Cobb Tuning. Well, if anyone's ever taken their car to the dealership and had an issue, the first thing there was there a Cobb on this? Was there an access port on this? Did you tune the car? So they see this factory car roll in with an ECU problem, and now Cobb is sending a computer to them. And they're like, they literally called me, they're like, hell no, we're not putting this on your car. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, it came from Cobb Tuning. We don't know what's done to this ECU. We don't know what tune's on it. We're not putting it on a car. I said, there's no tune on it. I said, it's a brand new OEM ECU. It's untouched. Just put it on the car. And they're like, no, we're not doing it. And I'm like, are you serious? And they were like, and this is something interesting. This is something you might want to keep note of. And it really sucks. I'm sorry, Cobb, that they do you dirty like this. And I'm not discouraging anyone from buying Cobb. Cobb makes great products. But my Subaru dealership told me that if a car comes in and it has the name Cobb on it anywhere, if it's got a Cobb exhaust, a Cobb intake, whatever, we're sending a modified vehicle report to Subaru, letting them know, hey, there's a Cobb exhaust on this, hey, there's a Cobb intake on this, hey, there's a Cobb access port on this. And then Subaru of America now has that information, and they can use that against you in future warranty claims. So if you have a Cobb exhaust, now again, here's the thing, is that they have to prove that that was the cause of the damage, right? So they can do that all they want, but they can't actually void the warranty. So they can tell Subaru, hey, this guy's got an exhaust on this car. So if the car blows up, Subaru will be like, oh, he's got an exhaust on this car. But odds are they're still going to warranty an engine replacement or whatever, because they would have to prove, which is impossible, because there's no way an exhaust could cause an engine failure, unless it's an untuned downpipe or J-pipe or something like that. So just something to note. They told me that, and I was like, are you serious? And they're like, yeah. So they're refusing to install this ECU, or ECM, and I told Cobb, and they're like, seriously? Well, we're going to call them. So Cobb calls them. Cobb's like, well, basically what they're telling us is that they just need some kind of official document saying that this is an OEM part. So I'm like, okay, cool. I've been calling Subaru of America this whole time. I made a file or a claim with them. Basically, I'm just trying to get an ETA when this ECM is going to ship out to me, or ship out to Subaru. The whole situation was just crazy. So I go into Subaru. Now I have the ECM receipt. So the receipt from Cobb saying that this is a brand new ECM from Subaru. Here's the receipt. I walk in the door and they're like, sorry, it's not going to work. And I was like, well, you just told them. And they're like, yeah, I know. But the thing is, we can't prove that it's not modified, because we got the package and it was opened. And I'm like, okay. So here it is. This was the ECM that Cobb sent out to them. It's a brand new Subaru ECM. You can see it there. It looks just like mine. There's no scratches, no dents, no dings. There's nothing wrong with it. However, same part number. I mean, like, everything's the same, right? Well, they're like, we can't prove that it hasn't been tampered with. And they're like, the only way we'll basically install this is if you just outright say, you know what, I don't care, put it on the car, in which case we'll tell Subaru, hey, we're putting this on this guy's car. If something happens to it, ain't our fault, ain't our responsibility. And I said, I don't care, put it in the car. So they put it in the car, and they go to flash it, and they can't. Subaru tells me that it's somehow locked. It's locked to another VIN. So here it goes. It says they left a sticky note on this ECM, says had wrong VIN number. So this ECU has already been attached to a vehicle, apparently already is in a way locked to a VIN number, and they can't unlock it and connect it to this car. So that throws up a red flag and makes me ask all kinds of questions with buying used ECUs or ECMs. How does that work? Because if something happens and you need a new computer and you want to buy a used one, can you not connect it to your car? Can you not overwrite the VIN that's on here? I thought if anybody, Subaru would be the people that would be able to do that. So I kind of was like thinking that they were BSing me and they just didn't want to install this, and they probably didn't even try. So I told Cobb, I was like, hey, I think they're just kind of BSing me with this. They're telling me that it's locked to another VIN, and Cobb's like, what the heck, that shouldn't be the case because we sent them a brand new one that we never touched. Then they said, okay, whatever, we're gonna send them another one. So Cobb sends them another one. This one showed up perfectly sealed, everything is good. They install it, they flash it to the car. Thank goodness, everything's good to go. I'm like, great. So Cobb's like, all right, awesome. We're glad it worked out. We'll front the bill. Just let us know what the bill costs. Send us a receipt, send us a tow bill. Everything's good. So Cobb not only sent me out a new ECM, 2 of them, to get the car fixed, they also are paying for the full bill. They're reimbursing me for it and the tow bill. Big shout out. They were there through everything. Their support was very quick. Anytime I called, they answered. Anybody I talked to, I talked to like 4 different people, and they all knew who I was. They all recognized the situation. So everyone in there was well aware of what was going on. So I never had issues of like, oh, well, so-and-so, I was talking to this person, and this person told me this. They were all in the loop, which was great. Everything was awesome. The situation sucked, but it couldn't have worked out better with how everyone stepped in and helped me. And Subaru was actually the biggest kind of, roadblock with not wanting to do it, but I understand their reasoning. And once I did finally get the good ECU, they were very understanding. They got everything done in a timely manner. So I have to thank them for that. And also Subaru of America basically offered to do something to help me out because I didn't have my car for 3 weeks, and all this stuff happened. So I'm not sure what they'll do. They kind of hinted at making a car payment for me or an insurance payment or whatever. I'm gonna see if they might send me out like some JDM parts, like the front grille or the fog light bezels or something. That would be awesome. So if they do that, great. But if not, it is what it is. The car's running, the car's driving. So that's it. That's the whole situation. So where we stand now, I have not yet tried to flash the access port. I'm still waiting on Cobb. I just picked the car up yesterday as of making this video. So they are going to basically reset my access port, unmarry it from the car so that I can hook it up. Of course, they're doing all that for free also. So then I'll hook it back up to the car, and then I can start tuning. So Clark Turner sent me my first map already, so I can flash that onto the car and start data logging and getting the car tuned. I'm super excited. We're gonna get the car tuned right now with just the intake. We're gonna get tuned on 93 and E85, do a dual map setup. Super excited to get all that started and get moving with this. So this was a really big hiccup, but everyone involved was super supportive and very helpful. So, I mean, guys, big shout out to Import Image, Subaru, Clark Turner Tuning, and Cobb Tuning. Great companies. Everyone helped me out. Everyone was there for me, and we got it all resolved. So that's the story for everyone that was wondering what happened. Now, if you're concerned about the situation and now you're scared to plug in your access port, don't be. This is the first time. I tried researching it. I tried asking people. I found one other person who had the same issue as me, and theirs was actually resolved by them. Like, they were able to fix it themselves, and all they did was unhook the battery for a couple of minutes, hook it back up, and then it fixed the problem. For me, it didn't do that, and it turned out something was wrong with my computer. So this was a freak thing that just happened, and Cobb chalked it up kind of to being the old software. And so if you haven't already, Cobb published another update for the access port. So if you have a 22 plus WRX and you have an access port, go ahead, plug it into the computer, download the update. If you're worried about this happening, it's all resolved now. So you're good to go. Don't stress it. Don't worry about it. You have nothing to worry about. And if something does happen, you guys see everything that Cobb did for me. So there's nothing to worry about. If something happens, Cobb's there for you. So I mean, the experience was rough. It was stressful, but it all worked out. Super thankful. That's going to be it for today's video, guys. I will have a couple more videos coming out soon. I have a steering wheel to install. I have some front canards from Flow Designs to install. I have some stuff coming from Import Image. I have the tune from Clark. So I have all kinds of stuff going on. It's going to be super busy. So yeah, just stay on your toes. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you see all my new videos, because there's going to be a bunch coming out really soon in rapid fire, because I'm back in grind mode. I got a bunch of stuff I want to get done to this car before Boxer Fest, and that's going to fly. I know it, this summer is going to fly. It's going to be Boxer Fest before we know it. So hopefully you weren't too bored with this video. Oh my God, it's bright. Hopefully you weren't too bored with this video, and the story was interesting enough to keep you there, but it was all true. It was a weird situation, so hopefully none of you guys have to go through this. But if something does happen, you heard my story. Everyone's there to support you. So that's going to be it for today's video, guys. I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Drop me some comments, and I'll see you again soon.